So, and now we go over episode 2. So, yeah, welcome back. If you're unfamiliar with this series, this is the series where I yap while making a WICSO. So, yeah, after these guys broke off, blue team decides to do something that basically, that no other civilization would dare cross an entire ocean. So yeah, they set their sails and discover the Indian coast, and they just go down and up it, and they're sailing this length, not actually traversing it on land, until eventually they find this, which is around the Bay of Bengal area, and they call this good enough to settle in. Get away from the political mess they created in the uh, on the other side of the Indian subcontinent. Uh-oh. See, eventually they just decide to bring their entire population over here. And as such, this area kind of just goes, well, yeah, this region kind of just breaks away as its own entity. Both technically claim to be the original, although government moved over there, or over here, so it's technically the real one. And also, for this one here, so yeah, the two, another, like, civilization is formed, linking up fully, you know, claiming out the Fertile Crescent. So yeah, and then these guys break off here. Eventually, they go on a rampage against the other ones, and eventually they discover, uh-oh. See it, and now we're gonna have our first proper war. Because remember how I said that these guys, like, really hate each other? Yeah, well, yeah. It is blood on first sight. Is eventually that this team is forced to reabsorb the rest of these to stop the chaos that's going on here. Eventually, an agreement is reached. Oh, and also in the meantime, so you might ask, what about Italy over here? You might ask, what about the purple Italian country over there? Well, If I told you they imploded, okay, that's probably not the whole story. Yeah. This country is technically the first to go, but more in a holy cities kind of way. Basically, this thing experienced like massive instability and eventual decentralization, where all manner of powers wanted. Basically, this purple Italian country here became heavily decentralized on accident. So yeah, with that decentralization, so yeah, they kind of just imploded like this. Eventually, Warlord takes charge of this bit here, and yeah, actually does a good job at reunifying her country's former territory. All they do face, all the army does face some issues up here. Nothing a little, oh my god. Nothing a little bit of this settlement couldn't fix. Now, this is not going to be the same as a country I have, like I plan to have here in Western Europe. This was just a rogue team of, this was just a rogue group of those yellow team guys that set up shop here-ish. Yeah, those guys were eventually just kicked out. Eventually, these guys too. Hmm. And eventually, Italy starts retaking Illyria. So yeah, and eventually, this orange group decides to migrate to Western, or group of them, decides to go and migrate over to Western Europe. More specifically, around the western-ish half of the Great European Plains. The Great European Plain, as it's called. So eventually they discover what the Netherlands. They discover the modern Netherlands. What it really looks like without the dams, since those eventually disintegrated, believe it or not. Actually, you know what? Since this is a season 2 world, those dams were just kind of deleted, which means the water flowed back in. Hmm. Believe. Let me get this color. Feels like the one. Mhm. See, eventually this thing is. Where's here? Yeah. So yeah, while a large group of those migrated over there. So yeah, eventually yeah, this happened. Eventually those settled out. The chaos settles like this. Now here's where the fun begins. Because remember these guys over here? Yeah, well, between these giant between this giant distance, again, it's relatively giant. Yeah, well, these guys break away from these guys, forming, say it with me, the Dutch. Yippee! I know it's probably like every WICSO Rome fan's like worst nightmare, but it's not that deep, little bro. I want to see something. Are these like too similar? No. Actually, wait. Not see the difference. Who knows? Uh, so yeah, eventually these two unify like that. So yeah, further splintering goes on. This group, uh, is now let's discover stuff, more stuff. Let's discover more turf here. See, eventually these guys discover that they did not, you know, encounter a new island. That these are connected. Eventually they go down and discover, yeah, no real major wars are happening right now. This is kind of the phase where civilization is slowly building up. So yeah, the first major like exploration is now happening out this way. As yeah, both of these groups go over west. And since their first actual state was set up in Italy, I have full right here to actually call them, Roman or Italian. Ooh, I like this mauve color. Hold up. Because that's just. Hold up. Let's reset this to default palette. Is now. Hold up. Is this just the same color? No, it's different. Okay. See, I added another. Hmm. See, eventually, in Western Europe, we can see the first. Hold up. Yeah. Eventually, eventually we see something happen here. As yet another, oh my god, as yet another tragedy has befallen. As yeah, this lighter purple country has started to go from within, which has allowed this country to scavenge the remains and also promptly gut the entire population from there. So, no. I don't know why I'm just getting anxious like that. But eventually, this whole thing goes. So, yeah, trust me, this magenta color, this won't be the first time it pops up. So, yeah. And about this. So, about our Dutch team this time. This is not WICSO, but better. I'd argue it's rather contrary to that. And eventually, these red and blue teams somehow managed to set up a decent intermediary state with both countries, or both of their, I guess, ethnic groups mixing. Unless this is probably a little too similar. Also, further implosion. Yeah, this country is kind of liable to spontaneously imploding. So, yeah. And after mixing. Anyways, this one goes on that. So now we. Alright, time to try to see more. Oh my god, I'm getting so nervous. Time to get if. Time to figure out if more stuff is over here. And spoiler alert, yes, more stuff is over here. So. So yeah, Japan has discovered. So yeah, eventually some. He said, let's just sail around the island. How far is it? And then they discovered the Kanto Plain. And then they trudge west from there and discover that this is indeed one big island here, so. And then let's just fill in the rest. The Japanese Isles like this up until Hokkaido. Yes, that's the name of that island. You might notice something weird about this, how it randomly sticks up. Yeah, I did that on purpose, not for the sake of looking weird, but rather for the sake of showing you that those areas connect to one another. Essentially. Because normally on this map, this and this would look like two completely different islands. When they're not. They're actually part of the same peninsula, which is Chukotka, by the way. So, yeah. Trust me, the big wars are coming. So, yeah. Eventually, another one with this color. I'll have it pop up in Portugal. Wow. So, yeah, Portugal gets this cool color here. Or this cool purple. And eventually, see, yeah, this guy, that's like that southern Pannonian whatever, decides to just go on a conquering spree down here, deciding definitively to not mess with the Italians here, which is honestly a good call. Until they decide to just invade through anyways. And then Italy comes in like, yo, stop that. Of course, these countries here have kind of just already. Uh-oh. Wrong. There's these countries here kind of gone kaput, so Italy kind of just walks right into them. And this is absolute sweep. It's probably good if I. Yeah. Actually. See, and eventually this country manages to get some of its territory back. But, yeah. Meanwhile, while that's happening, Italy's invading up in this guy. Well, Orange saw this and was like, nuh-uh, you're not doing that. So they rolled over both their own neighbor and the actual enemies. So, yeah. We're currently at this weird situation. But then, yeah. The dreams of forming a great empire are officially too strong. These different weird layers of occupation. So yeah, eventually a deal is reached where, yeah, remember that this warlord. So yeah, by this point, that warlord that reunified Italy, that decentralized. Yeah, well, by now she's had time with actual like military handling experience, so she's the one that'll know the ins and outs of war like that. Also, this new guy pops up right here. Let's just call him Glonk for kicks and giggles. Glonk does absolutely nothing and dies. I'm I'm just slipping at this point. Uh-oh. What fun. You know what? Glonk. I mean, yeah, this is kind of Italy. You know, I'm just gonna label them as Italy. This guy is Pontus. Call this. Now these two get the dual names Ur and Palestine. Why? Because I'm too lazy to make up other place names. You get to be Korea for now. I'll decide on better names later. Just the Glonk one that's, you know, making me crack up so much. I don't know what to call this guy, so yeah. Mm. Remember these alternate like languages are different. So yeah, I'm just gonna guess I'm gonna call them like Netherlands. Roughly. So yeah, this is like a bandage fix, kinda. So yeah, just for now. And also this peace treaty, yeah. So this new Italian queen manages to pressure Greece into just this southern Greek country here into just getting annexed again. I decided to just name that one Glonk and it's sending me. Thanks for watching.